Well, what do you really like? What's exciting for you? What drives you? And she says, what is yours? And she turned the tables on me. That's good. That's good. She wanted to know what I thought first, even though I'd asked her. And I said, mine is pretty simple. And she looked at me and I said, it can be summed up in 2 words. Now, this is after the movie Dead Poet Society had come out. If you've ever seen that movie, you know there's a phrase in there that Robin Williams tells his students when he says, come closer, lads, and look at their picture. You know, these men are worms now, food for worms. And so they draw closer, and he says in that whispery voice, Carpe diem. Can you hear him, lads? Can you hear him? And these kids are, high school kids are all looking at each other like, what is he saying? And he said, Carpe diem. And they looked at him, and he said, seize the day. And I looked at her and I said, that's pretty much my philosophy of life. Seize the day. Take advantage of it. And she had a problem with that word seize. I don't know why, because she spoke 7 languages. But she didn't quite focus in on the word seize. And I said, it means to take something and just grab it. You know, you seize something, just take it by the throat and squeeze it for everything you can get out of it. And she says, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so I'm getting off the plane, and she looks at me and she says, hey, squeeze the day. I said, good advice, thank you. And other flight attendant I had that was dating a guy for 4 years, and he decided to pull the plug on the relationship. She's 26 at the time. So since the age of 22, now 26, they parted ways. And the reason he gave her is that he wanted to spend more time with his buddies. Oh, that's a real romantic. Girls, you really want to fall for that guy. Bless his heart. And he still lived with his parents at the age of 26. And so as I'm talking to her, I'm doing this little thing here. And she says, what are you doing? I said, I'm raising the red flags for you, girl. And she asked me, she said, what advice would you give me? And I said, I don't have a lot of advice, but I can say this for you, that time has a way of making things way better. I said, right now it's your worst enemy, but in the long run, it's going to be your best friend. And she looked at me kind of quizzically, and I said, yeah, think about it. You get down here and you look back, you're able to see things a lot clearer than you were when you were really close to them. And I told her, I said, I used to officiate basketball, high school, small college. And I said, the thing that you want to do as an official is give yourself some distance and space and keep moving around so that you have the angles and you're watching the play in the paint, and you're out of the periphery of your eye, you're watching the wings, and you're always aware of that. I said, the farther you get away from something, the better a perspective that you have of it. So the farther back I get, the more I see all of you clearly. I get up close, I just see the ones that are closest to me. I said, time gives you that opportunity to look back and see things that you didn't see up close and personal. And that made sense to her. Before I went out to the East Coast, I asked my kids, I said, I'm doing a breakout session on relationships. What advice or what word stands out to you and why? And as I looked at these, I saw that these all related very well and very easily to not only my relationship with other people, my wife especially, because I was talking about close relationships, but my relationship with God as well. Number 1 on the list is what you see on the screen. The kids overwhelmingly said, you've got to have good communication. As my good friend Chris Blake says, communication is life. You don't have good communication, you got struggles. You've got to be able to communicate. Now that sounds so simple, but yet we make it so difficult. And why do we make it difficult? Because we don't want to sit and listen to anybody else. We want our own agenda. So in communication, it means that you are going to sit with an individual, you're going to go public with them and stay current. You want to know what's going on right now in their lives. What desires and dreams do they have? Do you ever sit and ask somebody their family background, where they've been, what they've experienced as a child or as a young adult now that you guys are in that process of being young adults? Because that will tell you a lot about an individual and what they're doing right now. So stay current with an individual. And I do this with my wife. That's probably the strongest thing that we've ever had in our marriage is communication. We talk a lot. We listen to each other. And we stay current with each other. If there's something that needs to be addressed, we address it. We don't keep sweeping it under the rug and just hoping that it goes away. It's not going to go away. You've got to deal with those things. And another thing on communication that I found really effective, and you guys can try this, is this eye-level messaging. Eye-level messaging means that you owning your response and not casting blame. If you're casting blame, you're what? I told this to a class the other day. I can't remember who it was. But if you take the word blame, when you blame somebody else, you're being lame. Yeah, you really are. You really are. Because it's always somebody else's fault, right? Yeah, they made me do it. If it hadn't been them, I would. Baloney. You made the choice. When you stand before a judge in court and you say, well, this guy I was hanging out with forced me to do it. Sorry about that. You did it. I had a former student that held a store up at gunpoint. And he had never used a gun before. And he made some gross mistakes. Number one, he had his name on his T-shirt. Number two, when he held the gun out, the bullet fell out of the chamber. He had no experience with this at all. But what had happened, he fell in with some guys, and they said, hey, we're going to go rob this store and get some cash. And so I go, and I'm sitting there in a group. We're going to, hey, how can we help this guy? How can we help this guy? This guy is as innocent and as squeaky clean as they come, but he got wrapped up. Did he make a mistake? Yeah. Is it his fault? Yes. Nice guy or not, it's his fault. He made that decision. He got swept into it. And so we got together as character references for this guy, and then our witnessing and our depositions made a difference in the court's decision on how they were going to treat Melvin. Because if you're holding a gun and you're actually threatening a person's life to hold them up, you're going in the slammer. Well, he was able to get a suspended sentence and some probation. And now I saw him at a class reunion a few years ago, and he's the same old jovial guy he was. How did you get wrapped up in this? But he made a dumb decision, and he owned up to it. So eye-level messaging means I feel blank when this happens. Okay, you're not blaming anybody. You're just saying how you feel. I feel hurt. I feel lonely. I feel betrayed. I feel less than ideal when this happened. Okay? Somebody says something bad to you, you can say, I felt hurt when this person said this to me. You're not casting blame. You're just saying how you feel. That's eye-level messaging. I feel. And by the way, when you talk about I feel, make sure it's an emotion type thing. I love it when people say, well, I feel like, and they say something that has nothing to do with that. I said, no, what you're saying right now is you think that. It's different than I feel. I can feel hurt. I can feel lonely. But when I say something that's expressing my opinion, that's a little different. You're doing I think. So owning your response and not casting blame. If you cast blame, you're being lame. This thing in communication is really pivotal, because in it there has got to be a level of honesty. Now, my gal did wrong when she made this up for me, because in honesty you want to be as loving as you can. So disregard that byline there, because what it should say, without love, it can be brutal. Well, I was just telling the truth. I was just being honest. But you can just shred people and be honest, right? Because what if this person is a lying, low down, low life? No, you want to be as loving as possible. Because without love, man, you can be brutal, even in your honesty. So honesty, you've got to have it. Billy Joel was writing that old song years ago that you guys have never heard. Honesty is such a lonely word. It is, because so few people like to practice it. We like to shroud it with little untruths and things like that to make us look good. So you want to be honest in that communication. And when you come before God, can I give you guys some encouragement here? Can I give you some encouragement? Be as blatantly honest with God as you can. If there's something you don't know and you don't like, you let him know that. He's got big shoulders. He can handle it. God, this is the stupidest thing I've ever gone through. Do you know what you're doing? Hey, he's good with that. You're being honest with him. He wants you to be honest with him. God, I don't get it. Why are you doing, be honest. You read through the book of Psalms and see how honest David was with him. Oh, Lord, I'd like to take those little babies and dash them against a rock. Total honesty. All these enemies that I have. God, why is it that these people who don't love you, who don't worship you, prosper? I don't get it. Here I go to the temple and I do these. Honesty. Honesty. God can handle it. I love the fact that he's good with that. And sometimes I go, oh, God, this is ridiculous. What in the world? Honesty. But be nice about it. Here's one that I thought was really interesting that the kids had brought up. And it makes total sense, in a relationship. God at the center. Love for Jesus, being changed into his likeness. Have you ever heard the song, Jesus at the Center? I love that song. Jesus, be the center of my life. Be the center of my life. Jesus, be the center of your church. The center. If Jesus is at the center, then everything else around him flows smoothly and is crucial. I thought that was a neat insight on their part. Mutual appreciation. Is there a mutual appreciation that you have with the person that you're seeking a relationship with? Are you able to forgive? Are you patient? Do you have trust? All of those things are key ingredients as far as having mutual appreciation. Something about this person that you really like. Hopefully they're finding that same quality in you as far as mutual appreciation. And with God, with our relationship with him, there is this mutual appreciation. He thinks that you're terrific. He really does. You're flawed, but you're also forgiven. You're low down, but you're loved. And when the enemy comes to me and says, Buell, you are da-da-da-da, so you're absolutely right. That's the only time that the enemy tells the truth, when he starts talking about what I'm like. He's right. I am. I'm pathetic. But I'm loved. I'm forgiven. I'm restored. That's why he came, is because I am low down and lousy. And he decided to deliver me from the bondage of sin. Another one they brought up was full investment. You know what that means? You're in this, man. You're going to be in it for the long term. And the level of intimacy should match your level of commitment. You know what I'm saying by that? Level of how deep you get in that should be determined on the commitment that you have. Now, we're talking about mature relationships here. And with God, your level of intimacy, remember that question that first night? Tony Campolo asked us, when is the last time God made love to you? It was like, whoa, am I fully committed to him? Then that level of intimacy is going to be very strong. Desire to see the partner happier than oneself. I thought this was interesting that kids would bring this up. That is real love. When you desire somebody else's happiness over yours, that's a level of maturity that is unparalleled and often unseen. Because what in relationships do we want more than anything else? Please me, please me. It's all about me. I got to be satisfied. Oh, please me. Fill my wants, that kind of thing. Make them always feel special. Easy. That's probably one of the easiest ones of this. How do you do that? A little note, a flower, a Starbucks unannounced. Holler at your boy. Little things like that make people feel special. Bringing them back a pizza from old Chicago and just dropping it off in their room when they didn't expect anything. Making them feel special. This is the one thing that we don't do enough of, but we are so good at when we do it. You guys are amazing. High school students are fantastic. You have a level of awareness that even some college kids don't have. And I think it's maybe because of your age and your point in life. You know how important it is to feel good about yourself, and so you desire to make other people feel good about who they are too. And we do that by these little gifts and little tokens of appreciation, just like your faculty families did last night. Wasn't that cool? I love that kind of stuff. And we do a role play on Friday night, and it's just our way of saying to the college students, You're special. We want to do this for you. We want you to enjoy this. And invariably, I mean, we get hugs up the wazoo, and they always thank my wife, and even some people will ask if they can help with dishes. And my wife says, "Oh, you're so kind. Thank you." No, it's kind of a one-butt sink. And then too many people in here, we get really crowded. So thank you. So she makes me do it, and makes me feel special. This was kind of fun. Did I go too fast? I went too fast. Yeah. Somebody had read the book Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And if you have a chance to read that, and I know you have so much time on your hands, right? Get a hold of that book. It will open your eyes to the different love languages that people have. Does it surprise you, though, that we have different love languages? Well, we're all different. So one love language is different than somebody else's. But some of the things on love languages are people who give words of affirmation. They affirm people. They talk about how neat it is to watch them do something. And, man, you have great skills at this. And I just admire this about you. Oh, girl, you can sing like nobody's business. Oh, I've got this girl that works in our office, and she's Russian. Her name is Sandy Shirakova. Maplewood grad from, yeah. And Sandy makes amazing Russian food. And I begged her. I had to get down on my knees and say, "Sandy, please bring me some of those things." And she brought them in, and I said, "Girl, nobody makes Russian food like you do." And that was easy for me to say because I'd never had Russian food from anybody else. But the time that you spend with people, the quality time is way important. You may not have a lot of it, but make it quality. Put your cell phones away when you're sitting there talking to each other. Just be glued on that individual. And we so easily pulled astray and distracted. But spend that quality time. That's part of a love language. Receiving gifts, how you receive gifts. Do you just kind of push it away like, "No, I don't deserve that. No, you should have never done that." No, receive them with the intention that the giver is giving. And for some of us, it's really hard. But for me, it isn't. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that. You don't have to get me anything, but my favorite color is blue, all right? And my favorite drink is chai tea latte, but you don't have to do that. So, and acts of service that we do for people. And this can open up a whole box of possibilities, how we serve each other, the things that we do. The physical touch, the touch on the shoulder, the hug, the kiss on the cheek, all these things minister certain things to people. Encouragement, we talked about that last night, remember? Encouraging each other. Mutual understanding. In other words, spend some time to find out where this person is coming from and what's bugging them. Don't interrupt them when they're talking. Try to understand what they're saying. And this is crucial in your relationship with God too. And you're not going to know that unless you just zip it and turn everything off and listen. I remember watching a basketball game when Digger Phelps was coaching Notre Dame. It has been years ago. But the camera zoomed in on their TV timeout. And he had his board there, and he was getting ready to draw some things out. But before he did that, on his knee, he looked up at his players, and they were all looking at him. He said, "Listen to me. Listen to me. You guys can pull this thing off if you will listen to what I'm telling you right now." And boy, I mean, they were glued, and they listened, and sure enough, they pulled it out with just seconds to go. He scored the game-winning shot and won the game. But he felt at that point he had to call that time out and get his guys to focus and listen. So that comes too. The mutual understanding, listening to each other, and similar values that you have. Crucial in a relationship. What values do you have? What drives your life? Remember what we talked about the other night? Priority. The main thing is that the main thing stays the main thing. Don't rationalize your relationship with an unbeliever. Well, he's a nice guy. Or, oh, she's a neat girl. Well, of course. You think the devil is going to throw something at you that isn't appealing? You've got to be really careful about that. Because if you mix your values and you go ahead and compromise yourself, then you're going to have problems in the relationship. because there's going to be expectations that each one of you has that are not going to be met. So make sure you key in on those similar values. Linda, I don't know how much time we have. I'm just going to keep going until I'm done. I've got an hour and a half of this stuff. Just kidding. 11:25? Okay, we'll be done at 11:45. Is that good? Okay, I'm messing with you now. You guys know I'm messing with you. Vulnerability. You know what vulnerable is? You know what being vulnerable is? It's like being transparent. It's pretty much what I'm being with you guys today and all this week. I want you to see me for who I am. I'm far from perfect. I'm as transparent as they come. I don't try to put on any airs. I like people, okay? That much is not a put on. But we've got to be vulnerable with each other. And I love what Brené Brown said. Vulnerability is the birthplace of belonging. Check that out. Here's another one that I heard that is really cool. Revealing your feeling is the beginning of healing. Yeah, it's being vulnerable. Dude, this is where I am. This is what I'm experiencing. No judgments cast, but sitting there fully engaged and fully listening and asking leading questions. What made you feel that way? What happens when these feelings overcome you? So you're asking, you're helping this person be vulnerable and be totally open. Because the truth of the matter is, guys, if you knew my sin, you would not sit here listening to me. But don't get uppity, okay? Because if I knew your sin, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you. But we're vulnerable with each other. We know that we're sinners. We know that we're weak. But we're in this thing together. See, that's what makes it cool. What I love about team sports, we're in it together. The team wins. The team wins. It's not one person winning. There's no INT. Is Richard here? Yeah, he's always saying that. Except I just dropped 31 points in your face. Got to be really careful about that. Being vulnerable. And here's two words, being intentional and vulnerable. What is intention? Exactly that. What I'm intending to get through. Intentions and goals are clear and out in the open. This is what I'm looking for. Have you guys ever sent out, and at this point it's not unusual for kids to talk about marriage, but even in just a casual conversation, have you ever opened up and said, this is what I'm looking for in a spouse? This is the kind of person that I would really like to settle in and spend the rest of my life with? This is what I would enjoy doing for the rest of my life as far as work is concerned. These are the things that really drive me and intrigue me and I get excited about. This is part of good communication. This is part of that whole process that we call getting along and letting people know what your intentions are and how clear and open they are. Balance between wants and needs. Oh, this is a good one right here. People come up and say, hey, Buell, you want a donut? I said, yeah, but I don't need it. I want it. Yeah, I love donuts, by the way. Oh, my goodness. When I eat a donut, my tongue just slaps my brain with delight. It's so good, gustatory is active and just drooling. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, want it. I don't need it because sugar's not good. Just in small portions. No. In more portions. But there's a balance between wants and needs. What do you need in life? Be very different than what you want in life, right? People say, what do you want? You need to ask me what I need. Notice how God met the needs of his people. Not always the wants, but the needs. This one absolutely threw me off of my chair. I have never heard a student talk about this in this light. In a relationship, this kid said one of the most important issues was a desire for what? Holiness. Whoa. Man, I had to sit up and take notice on this one, Linda. I've never heard a kid say this. If desire for holiness is first, they will find happiness. But look at the next one. If you only seek happiness, you will never find either holiness or happiness. Wow. That's pretty insightful. You're looking for something positive in a relationship, a desire for holiness. God, I want to be like you. I want you. There was a friend of mine that taught part-time out at Penn State University, And one of the professors that he associated with was a Buddhist professor. And he said I would try to witness to him from time to time and sit and talk with him. And so he asked him one day, he said, hey, do you mind if I pray for you? I pray with you, he said. And the Buddhist said, under one condition. This is classic. Don't miss this. He said, only if we pray for God. He said, you Christians, when you talk to God, you pray for things. He said, but I want to pray for God, to be totally filled with everything that He is. And so it kind of simplifies your prayers, doesn't it? Because how often do we go through and tell God stuff that He already knows? Dear Lord, Mary's in the hospital. It's like God looking over the banister rail of heaven saying, what? I didn't know that. Why doesn't somebody keep me informed? You know, or we ask Him for things. But when is the last time that in your prayer you were there all alone in your room or closet or wherever you go to be alone with Him and just prayed, God, I want to be so filled with You. I don't want anything but You. I want You, Your desires. I want Your needs. I want Your holiness. I want Your fullness. I want everything about You in me. I don't want anything other than that. It would simplify your prayer life, wouldn't it? Because then what would happen? God would fill you with the desire to go out and be His hands and His feet and His lips to other people. Because that's what we are all about. Major difference. I think we're going to mention this prayer. But I was really excited when I saw this one right here. Never stop having fun. All right, is it enough said, right? It's okay as a Christian. Christians should be the happiest people on the planet. Yes? Because we know how it's all going to end. We know where we're going. Enough said. Never stop having fun. Now, there's one here that I think I missed. Maybe not. Grace. It's an acronym. Take a look at it. GRACE. God's riches at Christ's expense. Is that cool? God's riches at Christ's expense. One kid thought that was what was needed in a relationship to be able to be graceful to each other, to share grace, to be grace. I did miss one. Oh, please. All right, maybe I didn't. No, I had it on the other one. Sorry. But here's this thing on prayer that I wanted to share with you. I was talking about praying for God. Mother Teresa, and I'll close with this. Mother Teresa was being interviewed by Dan Rather. Dan Rather used to be commentator on broadcaster on CBS. And so he was talking to Mother Teresa. This is when she was very well known. And I don't know if you know much about Mother Teresa's ministry. When you look at her as a woman and you see what she did as a ministry, it boggles my mind. But here was a lady that was so tuned into God. I mean, you could tell when she talked publicly, and when you looked at her on the TV doing her work. Her work was very simple in this. She worked in the streets of Calcutta. She had an organization called Sisters of Mercy. And the Sisters of Mercy would get together at 6 o'clock every morning. And before they went down to the streets of Calcutta to minister to the dead, you heard me right, to the dying and the dead. We look at that and we go, well, how futile is that? These people are already in the process of dying. What good is ministry going to do them at that point? Listen to what she did. Her organization would get beds, take them down into the streets of Calcutta. They would get suites and take them to those people because during the course of their life, they were poor, they were desperate, they had nothing. And she would get them into a bed so that they could be comfortable before they died. And she would give them something sweet to eat because they never had sweets. And she said the look on the faces of those dying people that for maybe the first time in ages broke into a smile, and with the word thank you before they died. Thank you. Thank you. She ministered Jesus to those people because it's exactly what Jesus would do. And she would take her fingers like this and hold them up before the Sisters of Mercy. She said, sisters, as you go to the streets today, remember the fingers. What God will do in you. What God will do to you. What God will do for you is what He will do with you and through you today. Take these dear dying souls to the arms of Jesus. And Dan Rather was really enamored by this ministry. And so here's CBS news correspondent Dan Rather from New York, sitting there with Mother Teresa. And he said, Mother Teresa, we've noticed in your work that you do a lot of praying. When you pray to God, what do you say? And she said, nothing. I just listen. And he kind of took him by surprise and said, when God speaks to you, what does He say? And she says, nothing, my son. He just listens. And Rather by now is just totally confused, blank face, like looking at her, waiting for a response. And she says, and my son, if you don't understand that, then you don't understand the essence of prayer. It's being in tune with the Almighty and what He desires for you. Wow. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Does God want good relationships with us? Yeah. Do we want good relationships with each other? Yeah. It can happen. It can happen. You can do that. You can be that. So long as we have this desire to be totally filled with Him, so that what He does to us and in us and for us and with us and through us will be to reach out and touch people in the needs and the wants of their lives, that we show them Jesus. Because a lot of them are dying today, and a lot of them will die tomorrow without us even touching them. But if not us, who? And if not now, when? Let's pray. God, I am so thankful that I'm so loved. And sometimes in the midst of all this, I don't feel like I love you enough. And it's because I don't even realize how much you love me. To hang on a cross and to be willing to say goodbye to life forever tells me quite a bit about your love. And to read about it in your book, that you prepare a place for us, that tells me quite a bit. But God, would you please in my life work in me to that extent that I will be a difference in the life of somebody else who needs to see you, who needs to hear you, and who needs to know how much you love them. And I'll be careful to give you all the praise and all the glory for that, because you alone are worthy. I pray the blood of Jesus over this student body. In your name, amen. Amen. Those of you going home this weekend, have a good time. The rest of us are going to have a better time.